A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this Champions and Innovators webinar series. And today's edition is Customer Interaction Analytics. Now, this series of webinars is brought to you by the Directors Club. We have devised and produced the Champions and Innovators series of webcasts to give you insight into new topics and some of the new technologies that are driving change and innovation across the customer service and contact center space. Now, today's webcast, as I alluded to earlier, is on the subject of customer interaction analytics and how it's been used to help manage the customer experience across the customer journey. Now, today's webinar is being kindly sponsored by Interactive Intelligence, so thank you very much in advance for your continued support in Interactive Intelligence, and we'll be welcoming one of their representatives today who's participating in our faculty, as part of our faculty, to present today's webinar. So the running order to get us started is first of all, I'll be introducing you to Joan Hill, who's Territory Manager at Interactive Intelligence. And Joan will start off by doing a little scene setter, defining customer analytics in the context of the contact center. And then we'll be moving on to Simon Hill, who is the Senior Manager for Service Improvement Planning and MI at Camelot. And Simon will be looking at the value of analytics in particular with regard to a regulated environment. So that's a very interesting angle indeed. And then we'll be coming back to Joan, who will be continuing her story and looking in particular at analytics in the contact center. We'll then hand over to David Naylor. And David is an analytics and customer insight consultant at Ember Services. And David's particular angle for this presentation is going to be analytics in the sales process, and in particular using analytics to make better sales outcomes. Now, at the end of these formal spotlight presentations, we're going to be having a Q&A, a question and answer session. And the Q&A panel will be all of the speakers, but we'll also be introducing a guest panelist. Lloyd Colt is a contact center experience, is a contact experience analyst in the speech analytics team at Tesco stores, and so Lloyd will be our additional panelist and our special guest for today. So, in terms of the Q&A, you can ask questions of either the speaker or just answer questions or ask questions in general by clicking on the Q&A icon, which is that question mark on your floating toolbar. It may well be on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, you click on that question mark icon, and the Q&A window will open up, and you can type in your question in the smaller window, up to 256 characters long, and you can send that to all of the panelists or a particular panelist. But if you can actually send it to all the panelists, then that makes sure that I pick it up, because I'll be pulling out those questions as the moderator of that Q&A session later on. Of course, remember to press send so it comes through to us. Now, you can actually send these questions through at any time. You don't have to wait till the end of a particular presentation or the end of all the formal presentations, the Q&A session. You can actually ask a question at any time. If you have any technical issues today in the live broadcast, if you're listening to us live, then if you could use the chat function and send that through privately to me as the host, I'll see if I can deal with those as we go through. No promises though. Now, if we don't answer all of your questions today during the live Q&A, then you can of course, then we will of course be assigning those questions to the various speakers, and they will answer those privately and directly to you post the event. If you're listening to the live recording and have any particular questions, then you can always send additional questions through post-event on Twitter or to me personally on my personal email. Now, you can tweet this webinar at any time, whether you're watching the recording or whether you're watching us live today, and our Twitter hashtag is Directors Club, and you can follow us on the Directors Club Twitter feed, which is addressed at DCGBNI. That's actually a really great Twitter feed, and on a daily basis we update that with all of the pertinent, relevant news, feature articles, opinion pieces, and research that we find on the internet as part of our ongoing research of the sector. So without further ado, because we are pressed for time today, we have a packed agenda, and I'm going to hand over to our first speaker. This is Joan Hill. Joan is Territory Manager at Interactive Intelligence, sponsors of this webinar today. And Joan's going to deliver an insight into customer interaction analytics to set the scene for our presentations later on. So Joan, I'm just going to do the handover to you. So I'm going to change the slide deck onto your slides, and then I'm going to make you the presenter by handing over the presenter controls. So that should be with you now. So Joan, if you click on the screen, then use your arrow keys. Over to you.
Thank you very much, John. I'd just like to say it's always a pleasure to be working with John and this series of the Directors Club. So thank you very much for inviting us along. I just wanted to take the first few moments really to set the scene of what analytics means to Interactive Intelligence and their portfolio of software applications. It's a big topic for us, I have to say, but I thought I'd probably start off best with just asking the question, what is customer interaction analytics? Well, according to Wikipedia, it's a game of two halves. It's actually a methodology that gains valuable information from data analysis, but it actually uses this information to recommend action or to guide decision making. Okay then, so what does that mean in real terms? So in essence, it's a discovery and communication of meaningful patterns in data. As contact center users, we all collect huge amounts of information, we record it, we store it, and unfortunately it just turns into big data. It's unstructured and we don't do an awful lot with it. But we've got to say that it's rich with content, if only we could get to that content and do something more with it. How can we do that? Unfortunately, we need simultaneous application of statistics, software and research to actually quantify performance. But the good news is that it actually removes barriers to improve, the barriers that actually stop improvement happening. But the best bit for me basically is the fact that it finds the needles in your haystack by delivering valuable insight into helping you make effective and successful decision making. So if that is what customer interaction analytics is, what does it actually mean in the contact center? Well, I've got to say, I honestly do believe that stakes have never been higher for the contact center, and the fact that they have got more and more information at their fingertips that they could be using more with if only we had the capability and the ability to actually be able to do more with it. Positive contact center experiences, as we all know, gives us loyalty. It creates that loyalty that the customer will keep coming back and buying more. Satisfied customers not only have the potential to spend more, but they may even be willing to pay a premium from a trusted supplier. And the good news is that they often cost less, in actual fact, to support moving forward. But what are the components within the contact center that we can actually use to analyse and do more with? Well, contact centres really do need to have that real-time alerts, the notifications, and even coaching prompts that can help process guidance where agents are, for example, out of compliance, perhaps in a highly regulated industry, financial services or whatever. Based on their profile and preferences or what is being said, pop-ups can actually go to an agent, supervisor or manager to provide next best course of action. And what with the rapid growth of social media as a channel, it's driving the need to capture and understand where it went wrong before feedback goes viral. We need the ability to reconstruct the whole customer journey to be able to pinpoint that one place where it started to slide downhill. And it's actually, in fact, this trend that's fueling the use of speech analytics. So when I say that, I would just like to say, put that marker to the side there and let me come back in my second 10-minute speech, and I'll go into much more detail actually on speech analytics. But for the purposes of this discussion today, I thought, well, exactly what do we need out of analytics? What is analytics in the contact centre? And for us, it's about getting serious about analytics. It's about using every application available in the contact centre to actually be able to use that and be able to take something from it and increase our opportunities to actually be a better supplier to our customers. So in our world, we use feedback, which is post-call surveys, basically. We use multi-channel recording and quality management, and we also use speech analytics. But for me, there's actually 4 key points to being serious about analytics, and I think that starts with broadening our view of quality. It's about gathering the interaction level data as well as the agent level data during our quality monitoring and managing. It's about actually being able to triangulate that data to validate quality criteria and identify trends. So take your information from the contact centre and actually compare it to sales that have come in that week, that month, that day, and actually, measure things like call length versus quality store. It's also about doing more with what you actually capture from a screen perspective. Determine if your agent desktop is actually supporting workflow, and evaluate across all interaction channels, not just the voice channel. Include generic objects like work orders, claims cases, processing actual work items that come in through the contact centre as a process. And above all, analyse IVR performance proactively with cradle-to-grave reporting. So if we actually broaden the view of quality and increase the footprint of that, how about evaluating strategically? Ask yourself, what is the quality programme objective? Is it just about improving quality? Is it just about evaluating agent performance? Keep on asking yourself why until you can't answer the question anymore. Reducing callbacks is a fantastic way of actually giving additional feedback into quality control, into warehousing, into the delivery teams, into finance. But it takes a lot more than just reducing callbacks and trying to increase sales. How about expanding the conversation and taking that further to other departments within the organisation? Export calls from the call centre and share quality issues. What about recording capability being given to non-contact centre departments? For example, maybe in training, maybe in HR. What if senior managers were to be encouraged to evaluate calls? Okay, maybe not, non-scored questions obviously would be the best, but a separate free-form type capability that they could actually then evaluate calls and just see what it's like in the contact centre role. And I mentioned earlier the ability to share with your sales and marketing colleagues. Why not calibrate the information that you take from the contact centre stats and to put it into the sales and marketing team? Or you can actually pull together calls that can be shared with training, both positive and negative. You can maybe even share them with the warehouse or the delivery team. But whatever you do, you've got to absolutely be in the position to support the business goals by communicating clearly in post-call surveys and feedback forms exactly what type of questions and what kind of answers you're looking for. Don't be afraid to actually answer the hard questions. But above all, involve stakeholders, and especially in an annual questionnaire review. Are the quality criteria within the contact centre and the corporate goals aligned? Absolutely have to be. And use your quality reporting to compare quality and customer satisfaction, cross-channel it and interdepartmental. So I've spoken quite a bit, my first 5 minutes have gone already, but I've spoken quite a bit about the analytics or the types of analytics we should be conducting in the contact centre. I'd like to just take a look at the potential value of recorded content in particular. Let's just say, for example, you have 100 agents who are each talking to 12 customers per hour, and they're on shift for about 8 hours. At the end of that day, you're going to generate just slightly less than 10,000 call recordings. Now, that is one huge amount of call recording. I think everybody would actually agree with that. However, these recordings contain valuable information about our customers and our agents, their frustrations, training opportunities that we may have to bring to bear, the call drivers, and above all, the trends. So if that's the potential value, what does the realised value look like? So of the 10,000 call recordings per day, which scales up to between 200 and 300,000 per month, quality management staff can review only something like less than 10 calls per agent per month, or around 34 call recordings per day. However, that means 99% of the potential value of customer conversations is never realised because no one ever listens to them or actually analyses their content. Unfortunately, that is the that is the reality, and we only have we have 3 options open to us. Option 1 is, and he looks extremely happy, but he's obviously not listening to every recording, but at least statistically significant sampling of recordings and compile analysis of contents. Now, there's pros for that, right? Because you then can leverage the human understanding of the language, of the inference, the emotion that was actually done. However, the cons are very expensive, it can be tedious, it can lead to burnout, and there's consistency and quality standards. Statistical sampling of recordings is not nearly effective as analysing all calls, but let's face it, boredom is a pattern, not a reality. Option 2 is to listen to that technology to listen to the recordings after the fact. Pros in that: better solution than having people do it, probably less expensive. There's solutions that exist today for that, and good news is it can glue onto existing contact centre infrastructure by in actual fact copying recordings. However, the cons are you have to reprocess those recordings, you probably have to separate staffing requirements, there's going to be results. It's probably one of the more expensive solutions in terms of software and hardware, and there's potential compliance issues due to recording handling. And I think we'll hear from Simon, who's in one of those organisations that absolutely needs to be very, very careful about what they do, being so heavily regulated as they are. And finally, on to 3. You can do it now. What about doing it now? Analyse calls in real time whilst recording them. It allows immediate action to be taken. There's no reprocessing of calls after the fact. There's no parallel infrastructure, so you're going to save costs in that. And how about the fact that you can optimise work existing staff is already doing versus hiring more? Of course, there's got to be cons in every world there is, but if word phrase spotting and no ability to go back and search for new word phrases after the fact, so it's more difficult to bolt on, since speech analytics has to become a core part of the contact centre infrastructure. So it really has to be part and parcel of everything that you do there from the start. So, in saying that, I just want to leave you with my holding thought and say that it's not just about time. In actual fact, it's about relevance. There's more to it than just listening to recordings in real time. While there are a lot of advantages to it, more is needed, and that's why we've created Interaction Analyzer, which we will be looking at in the second part of our bubble. That is me, John. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Joan. Great scene setter. A good introduction to the subject and putting it in context for us, and I look forward to your second half. I like having a cliffhanger. So look forward to joining Joan in about 15 minutes time for that second part of her presentation. Right, moving swiftly on, as always. If you're watching the live broadcast, just to give you an idea of timings, the formal presentations today, i.e. the speaker spotlights, will be finishing at around half past 1, and then the Q&A will run through towards the 2 o'clock mark, depending on the flow of questions that we have, etc. So I'm now going to move on to our second presentation, and I'm going to unmute Simon Hill and welcome you, Simon. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, John.
Excellent stuff. Right. Okay, Simon, what I'm going to do, I just need to take back control of WebEx from Joan, and then I'm going to change to your slide deck, Simon, and hand over control to yourself, which should be happening now. So I shall introduce you. Simon Hill, ladies and gentlemen, is the Senior Manager for Service Improvement, Planning and MI at Camelot, and is going to address the issues of interaction analytics and CRM in a regulated environment. So, Simon, it's over to you.
Thank you, John, and hello again, everybody. So I'm Simon Hill. I spent the last sort of 15 years at fairly large organisations like Bupa, Cable & Wireless and Vodafone in various roles, ranging from a global CRM consultant to performance insight and analytics. And as John said, I now lead operations planning and control for Camelot and the National Lottery, and I'd like to take about 15 minutes to share a couple of relevant stories with you today. First of all, a little bit about our journey, which defines the metrics that we use to measure our performance, and then a bit about how we've leveraged integrated CRM and analytics to improve the customer experience and create more relevant, actionable and desirable communications. See if I can get to the next slide. There we go. So first of all, a very little bit about Camelot. As many of you will know, Camelot UK is dedicated to running the National Lottery. It's overseen by a single government regulator, the National Lottery Commission, and Camelot UK has got about 650 employees. Now, about 70% of the UK adult population play the lottery. Now, that gives us a customer base of about 30 million. Customers who play online account for about 6 million of that. And then there's about 37,000 retail outlets where you can buy your lottery ticket on the high street. And recently, we've introduced what I call the Next Generation Contact Centre, which is a technical transformation of our service operation, which also provided a significant enhancement to our analytics capability. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail on the technology, there isn't time, but I do want to give you a flavour of the technical side of our innovation. And we've introduced a lot of the technology that Joan was talking about earlier. All of this represents about 40 new physical and virtual servers, a complete uplift of our customer-facing telephony and our internal tools that includes things like voice of the customer analytics through speech analytics and customer feedback surveys in real time, desktop analytics that monitors what actions our advisors are taking in our systems. And all of that was deployed simultaneously over the space of a few weeks in November last year. And we've seen great results so far from doing all of that. Customer satisfaction for the National Lottery is at an all-time high. We've commissioned some independent research that shows nearly 2/3 of our retailers rate us as their best supplier. And for our customers, we've seen over 90% satisfied or very satisfied with over 100,000 CSAT surveys backed up by independent mystery shopping. So that new technology platform integrates with our CRM system so that not only do we have a deeper insight on customer demand and call reasons from an analytical perspective, but our agents have got things like screen pop and other tools that help us to improve the quality and speed of contact handling. Now, at the start of this session, I spoke about the fact that Camelot is in a unique position from a regulatory perspective. In fact, we have a whole government body to ourselves, the NLC. And when we started our dialogue with them, they had about 70 people working in the National Lottery Commission. Now, that's one government regulator for every 10 Camelot employees. Now, I'm sure many of you come from either the public sector or from industries where regulatory oversight is key. So what I want to do with this section is talk about the journey that we went on in partnership with our regulator in redefining the measures that we use to assess our performance and the change in behaviours that delivered. Now, this is an extract of the 147 measures we started out with, compiled by the government at the start of the National Lottery licence. All of it focuses really on speed of answer and responsiveness. In fact, you can see one of the key standards for the National Lottery line was to answer 90% of calls within 5 seconds. Now, that's because our regulator had an understandable but fairly traditional view that a call centre is just there to pick up the phone. So if we pick up the phone quickly, we must be doing what's needed. Now, those targets were simply driving the wrong behaviours. It didn't matter what quality of conversation we had with our customers, provided we just got to that phone within 5 seconds. So we wanted our regulator to measure us differently, to allow us to set targets that would drive the right behaviours for us to meet those customer expectations. Now, government tends to be quite focused on outcome-based regulation, and that really formed the cornerstone of the strategy that we negotiated. The outcome for calling any service centre, not just the National Lottery, is a combination of response time, resolution and satisfaction, efficiency, effectiveness and quality. Now, we knew that the existing set of measures that we had, focused as they were on speed of answer, only told part of the story. So we invited the NLC to come and talk to us with the aim of getting a reduced set of measures that were much more aligned to customer outcomes, resolution and satisfaction and quality. Answering the call quickly is only one influence on customers' overall levels of satisfaction. If you drive a business to invest exclusively in resources to pick up the phone quickly, managers and advisors are going to focus naturally on answering the call quickly rather than on quality conversations, and senior managers are going to be targeted on micromanaging SLAs and not on improving the overall service holistically. I'm going to show you some of the research that we shared with the NLC to convince them of that need to change. And I want to thank Matt Renniston, who's the Managing Director of Bright, who commissioned this research for us, for allowing me to share that with you today. There are many myths about what affect customer satisfaction, and these myths are made into targets that get communicated to agents, and that results in contact centres driving the wrong behaviours. This graph shows the results of Bright's analysis. That was over 500,000 CSAT surveys carried out last year, and it shows some quite interesting things. The break point for customers was between 1.5 to 2 minutes queue time. Now, breakpoint means when customers started scoring general satisfaction lower because they felt they had to wait too long. The customers who were dissatisfied with their queue time went on to score overall lower than others, but not lower on average than a 3, and that applied to customers even waiting for more than 5 minutes. The customers who were dissatisfied with staff engagement and product knowledge, however, were much more likely to be very dissatisfied overall. So engagement and product knowledge beats queue time in driving customer satisfaction. But what's the most common performance target? 80% of calls answered in 20 seconds. And the reason for this is threefold. A lot of the reasons, and Joan touched on this indirectly earlier, is that technology suppliers put it into their systems as a default measurement without taking into consideration what strategy or sector their clients might be in. And also, senior directors want a simple metric, something that's simple to understand to gauge performance. And there's also a belief that speed of answer is more important to customers than other things. That idea that directors want one service measure only is quite a common one. You know, a single measure, one ring to rule them all. And a number of organisations over the last few years have gone to single metric performance measurement, things like Net Promoter Score, Customer Experience Score. And my team here at Camelot have also spent some time looking at it as well. The challenge with that is that a single metric might tell you how you're doing, but not why. And the reality of getting to best-in-class customer service is that magic doesn't just happen. Most centres measure the same basic things: abandon rate, ASA, cost of call, agent utilisation. There's no magic recipe for choosing the right KPIs for your business, because every business is unique and companies have different strategies. I mean, my personal belief is that it's only when you measure a number of these things in parallel that metrics become meaningful. But metric analysis is only half of the story. And we use our new technology platform to radically enhance our ability to understand the operation and then condense all of that data into a small set of comprehensible, pragmatic KPIs that are directly linked to what customers want from a service organisation. And we also use that platform to enhance our CRM capability. And that's what I'm going to use the last half of the presentation to talk about. A big part of the change that we delivered revolved around our use of CRM, integrating a single view of the customer, making it accessible to our agents, and mining the data that it produced to deliver more relevant, desirable, and actionable communications. Relevant, desirable, and actionable. Now, CRM isn't just a technology platform, it's also about building a depth and breadth of relationship with customers. It helps us build an understanding of who our customers are, and through understanding their transactional behaviour, what they want. If you or I receive a good piece of communication, it's going to demonstrate that the company knows who we are, has a product we're interested in, an attractive price point, and a straightforward method of taking up the offer. It's going to be relevant, desirable, and actionable. And one of the most powerful ways that we can demonstrate to our customers that we know them and value their business is by presenting them with products that don't just represent the products we need them to buy, but the products that, based on their behaviour, they want to buy, or even better, what they didn't even know they wanted to buy. Modelling customer demand, behaviour and propensity is key to unlocking the future lifetime value of customers. And if you want to take a look at how the overall customer base behaves, that will help you to model that individual behaviour. If you can build a model that says customers who had transactions 1, 2, 3 and 4 also went on to buy product X, then offering product X to customers who also had transactions 1, 2, 3 and 4 but have not yet purchased might be a winner. The longer you can make that value chain assessment, the more likely the match is going to be a good one. And by correlating sets of transactions into behavioural patterns and applying statistical forecasting techniques, you can start to predict the points at which interventions through campaign marketing could change that behaviour from outcome A to outcome B. Now, if I was a betting man, and I am because I'm not allowed to play the lottery, changes like these would be a pretty good predictor of what segments of customers might be interested in. But how do you turn that idea into a practical reality in your organisation? There are some fundamental principles, the sort of bedrock that you need in order to be able to build powerful, personalised campaigns that actually deliver results. And you need to look first and foremost at your organisational structure and data principles. There's very little about us that can't be expressed as data. Who we talk to, what we say, where we go, what we consume. If your customer data points exist in fragmented silos across your organisation, you're going to struggle to build a coherent picture of customer behaviour. If information about your customers exists in different systems, you're not only missing the full picture of each customer's relationship with your organisation, but you're also likely to be sending multiple uncoordinated messages from different departments from the same customers, and that's not smart. And once you start building complexity, adding communication channels like direct mail, telephony, online, social media, each of those channel systems may also create its own set of data, making it really difficult to determine who responded to what campaign via what channel. And while CRM isn't all about the technology, as I said earlier, a good CRM system can help you merge all of this information into a single place and ensure that you've got a full picture of the various ways customers interact with your organisation. And taking a look at social media for a second, again, it's something that Joan mentioned earlier. And social media isn't primarily a sales platform or a means of reputational management. If we think about how we use social media in our own personal lives, it's about friendship and our social environment. Friends tell me stuff that I want to know, they entertain me, they help me make the most out of my life. And if you want to use social media to support your brand, you've got to be prepared to have a social dialogue with your customers. Unless your social presence does things like engage and build customer advocacy, having a Facebook page with a few ads on it doesn't mean your brand is multi-channel and multi-social. One of the things that Calmot will be doing across the next few weeks, some of you may know that we're relaunching Lotto in October, and we'll be launching some fairly exciting social campaigns and promotions that really leverage the power of friendship and the social aspects of gaming, things like syndicates. Social media can be a powerful tool in CRM, and if you're smart, CRM can help you mining the social graph of your customers too. That web of interconnected relationships that exists between all of us. Companies like Facebook have a vast wealth of data about our friends, who we talk to, how frequently, who and what we like. But what about your own social graph? Those of you on this call, earlier I spoke briefly about the data principles that you need in order to deliver true CRM and build effective campaigns. Now, the data science behind social networking can just as easily be applied to your own customer base, and that's the approach that we've taken. It's important not only to take into account who your customers are and how they're connected, but also the commonalities between them. One of the most robust scientific findings in social network is that of homophily, which is basically a posh word for describing the tendency of individuals with similar characteristics to associate with one another. A study that's just been conducted by Facebook suggests that friends with strong ties to us are similar, and they're more likely to be tuned into the same brand, purchase the same products, and visit the same websites as us. And you can extend that homophily principle to your own customer base. If you do it right, the data will tell you a lot about the interconnectedness of your own customers and the propensity of specific classes of customers to make like-minded purchasing decisions. And you can use that to make better and more targeted inferences about future behaviour. When your customers interact with you via the web or email or a call to your customer service agent, you need to know who the customer is, their account status and so on, but importantly, what the next best activity is for that customer. a lot of the heavy lifting in analytics can be done offline as you update your segmentation. Now, I don't know how those of you on this call name your customer segments, gold and silver, premium, basic, gerbil, hamster, but assuming it's a simple classification based on value, it's pretty straightforward for you to say, every time a gerbil class customer calls, offer them product A. You don't need a lot of technology to do that. It's a simple bit of paper pinned to the monitor on your agent's desks will be enough to do that. But the more real-time and adaptable you can be, the better able your website systems and contact center teams are going to be in intercepting that vital moment of truth. So if you think back to the earlier slide I put up on value chains, the point at which you can influence outcome A to become outcome B. What's required is a mechanism to apply specific personalization rules based on the customer's current, or at least most recent, set of transactions and behaviors. And we need to present that personalized offer in a consistent way, regardless of whether you're on mobile, social, website, talking to a contact center agent. The multi-channel systems that Joan talked about and that I put up right at the start of this presentation exist as platforms for contact centers, and they're at the heart of tying all this stuff together in a single unified solution. Now at Camelot, we've made significant investments in our contact center technology, and we're developing our CRM and web-based systems with exactly these principles in mind. Let me give you an example of what it looks like at a high level. The customers or prospects, depending on your industry, interact with us through multiple channels, including self-service, mobile, web, IVR, talking to agents, and so on. In all of these cases, the same personalized offers should be available. Now, you can do that by combining an enterprise-level product catalog with CRM data. Now, the personalized recommendations come from an enterprise source of campaign policies and rules, one set of rules that apply across channels, matching the customer transactional behaviors and segmentation that we talked about earlier with the product catalog. And you present that via software that serves as a channel coordination layer. Now, this idea of channel coordination is about providing a uniformity of experience. It ensures that each customer has access to the same products and services in the same way. So if I start my purchasing experience on my mobile, I can seamlessly pick it up by my desktop via a coordinated shopping cart. Customers can interact flexibly without having to start over again at any point in the process. And it means that each personalised offer has the maximum exposure, and it's presented in a consistent way across all the touch points. If I'm talking to an agent, they can see I've got an unconfirmed item in my basket, and the agent is going to offer me the same deal that surrounded the online shopping cart. And that means you're reinforcing the effectiveness of your campaigns as customers move between channels, instead of being fragmented and inconsistent, as many of us have been. Integration with billing, provisioning, and back office systems via a customer orchestration layer supports the immediacy of the experience. And what I mean by that is that questions about things like product availability, transaction history, and so on can be answered immediately through any channel and overlaid with that appropriate personalization. And it also means that agents in the contact center, field sales staff, and relationship managers all have that next best activity at their fingertips, and the opportunity information for customer information, and the opportunity information for each customer interaction. So I think I've well and truly run out of time, and I just want to sum up the things I've covered in this session. Firstly, on measurement analytics. Camelot invested in new technology with our next generation contact center, but we made sure it wasn't just a technology project. We looked at what customers wanted and our business strategy and aligned the two to create that new set of measures. So we simplified, measuring the things that are important to customers, but ensuring that we've also got a broad enough set of metrics to drive appropriate internal behaviors and to reassure our regulator that we're undertaking the interactions with our customers with quality, accuracy, and propriety. Secondly, we're using CRM to build an increasingly holistic view of customer interactions across all the channel touchpoints. So channel coordination lets us deliver a common experience, whether you're using a PC or a mobile device. Customer orchestration works from a common CRM database and personalization rule set to maximize the exposure of our campaign propositions. And then finally, deep and effective CRM analytics provides us with a foundation to develop communications that are not spam, but which customers find relevant, actionable, and desirable. So, thank you for your attention. You're welcome to ask me any questions in the Q&A session, or if you want, you can get in touch with me offline at the address on the screen here. I'm now going to hand back to John. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Simon. Fantastic mobile phone number you have. It's
the joys of having worked for Vodafone in the past, I think.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Simon. That was a really insightful presentation. And just repeat, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions for Simon based on what he's presented today, if you can hit that Q&A icon, that question mark icon on the toolbar, and pop in your question and press send, then that'll come through to us here, and we'll put those to Simon at the end of today's formal presentation segment. Right, moving on to the second part of Joan Hill's presentation, and Joan, you're going to be placing analytics in the context of the contact center, if I remember rightly. So let me change your slide deck and hand control of WebEx back to yourself, which should have happened. You click once on the screen, and away you go.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you very much, Simon. That was absolutely enlightening. I would love to follow up in that conversation, just find out a bit more of exactly what else you've actually done at Camelot. It sounds really, really good. Anyway, I set my teaser a short time ago when I did the first part of interaction analytics, and hopefully you'll remember this slide. It's not just about time, it's also about relevance, and with that in mind, we actually have created an application called Analyzer. There's more to it than just listening to recordings in real time, and that's why we actually did it. So I would just like to take a quick deep dive into exactly what Analyzer is for us in contact centre terms. Speech analytics is something that we see some real serious growth in from us. If I look back in 2004, there were only 25 implementations. This is worldwide, based on DMG Consulting's report of 2012. But there were only 25 implementations of speech analytics. And initially it was dismissed as being too complex for contact centres. There was an air of sophistication about it that just didn't suit contact centres, or so they thought. But by the time this report was put together, it was estimated by DMG that there was approximately, well, almost 6,000 implementations. So some phenomenal annual growth rate there. However, it is projected for that to grow further. So this year they project a 25% growth, and next year a further 20%. So I guess what I'm probably trying to say here is that time has actually proven the sceptics wrong. It now is one of the fastest growing applications in contact centre history ever. And it's all got down to the fact that the second generation of solutions are here. They're functionally more robust, they're simpler to implement, and they process at rapid rates. So we've went from wow to now. That's exactly where we as Interactive Intelligence very much see things being. But talking about our product in particular, the value actually is, speech analytics. I just wanted a quick reminder of this slide was in the earlier presentation, and it was round about that. This is the trend that's actually fueling the use of speech analytics. And where does the value come in our speech analytics product? It comes in the value that there is to a call centre. So I guess if, as a call centre supervisor, you have a number of agents speaking to an even bigger number of clients, customers, prospects on the other side, and you're faced with that quandary of what call should I listen to? Joe is pretty new, I'll try his call, or perhaps maybe Sue's been in that call for a while, I'll listen in. Apologies to anyone, Joe and Sue in the audience, who are maybe feeling a bit threatened. I don't mean that in any shape or form. But that's basically the quandary that today's contact centre supervisor is actually sitting in. So, wouldn't it be much better if you knew what to pay attention to versus that random call monitoring? Wouldn't it be better if you could listen, coach, join calls that matter, get yourself introduced into calls where potentially the agent is unhappy, or indeed the customer is not particularly happy, and you could deal with that right away. So it's not a case any longer of wondering who to call into. It's now a case of, well, you know, Joe's customer has a really low score, what's up? Let me get involved. Or perhaps Sue's score is low and I see she's showing some churn indicators. Let me just listen in and just check exactly how she's doing. Maybe I'll be able to coach or listen and give her some advice. So that's the value to the call centre supervisor. There are other values that go up into the supervisor level, which basically are along the lines of, you can see agent and customer scores per interaction in real time, and see alerts on worst active scores. So if you want to hover your mouse over an agent or customer score, it will show the last 7 keywords or the last 10 keywords spotted, and also give a plus score or a negative score components against each part. But as always, you know, as a supervisor, you can always then listen in, coach, and join the call if appropriate. Nothing worse than barging into a call where it's totally inappropriate. This is not only your eyes and your ears into the call centre, but it's giving you the information from which you can actually base and make an informed decision. So, the value to the call quality manager, completely different kettle of fish altogether. So, here's the recordings that have been done in the space of 1 week, and we have to determine what calls should I score. Pick any recording, pick one recording, pick half a dozen recordings. Well, I know what I'll do. I'm really, really busy and under pressure today. I'll pick some of the shorter ones. I've got so many calls to score and only so much time. And, you know, who knows, they could all just be all the same for all I actually know. But with an analyzer, what it actually does, it picks up the keywords and actually places them against each of the recordings. So you can then search for recordings based on words that have been tagged and spotted by Analyzer. Not only just keywords being spotted, but agent and customer scores. You can therefore save, you know, some significant time in finding the relevant calls to score. So what calls should I score? Score calls to see how John R did with unhappy customers perhaps, or let's score some calls where Sue had to deal with customer churn. Again, the eyes and ears right into the customer agent perspective as and when it happens real time. Call Quality Manager also has got a view into this. We can add additional search criteria working with our recorder client, and it goes by scores, keywords and categories. Recording playback marks the actual spotted words, and it allows you to select and play back exactly the pieces that you actually want to hear. It's also two-way spotting, so not only spot what the customer's words are, but it will actually spot the words in actual fact that an agent actually has. So overall, the value then to the call centre manager gives you an ability to identify trends that based on analysis of all calls for indicators such as unhappy customers, potential churn, first call resolution. We're actually spotting words that you will build up in a dictionary that are keywords for you and the business that you actually work in. So in summary, the Interaction Analyzer gives agent-customer conversation content that contains significant but yet untapped value. If you remember when in my first presentation, I did say we have got lots and lots of recordings, we've got lots and lots of storage, and we have got no way of tapping into that to actually get to the real nuggets underneath. With Analyzer, you can actually do that. It allows realization of it in real time, and it is a very powerful real-time tool. As I said, it gives you the unseen, lets you hear the unheard words, giving you information that you didn't actually know. Contact centre staff can actually benefit from it, and the roadmap for it is we're continuing to include things all the time, adding to it, and this is additions that customers have actually asked us for. They want more historical contextual analytics built in, they want more deep dive into reporting, and emotion detecting is something that we're currently piloting just at this moment in time, along with full text transcription. I know that's been pretty quick, and it's a deep dive, well, a summary into exactly what we do with Analyzer. But as I say, we see this as being a huge topic for us moving forward. Certainly one of the growth topics for us, and current focus is to keep on expanding that and doing more and actually more with it. So thank you again for your time, ladies and gentlemen, and I will hand back to you now, John.
Thanks very much, Joan. As with the other presentations, ladies and gentlemen, if you could hit that question mark button and send any questions through to Joan for the Q&A session, which will follow our next formal spotlight presentation. But thank you very much, Joan, for the moment. We'll come back to you in our Q&A. Let me just take control of WebEx back before I introduce our final spotlight speaker for today, which is David Naylor. Now, let me just bring David in. Unmuted you.
Hi there, John.
Good afternoon, David. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm good, thank you. Good. Just enjoying the presentations.
No, they've been fantastic, and the focus of your presentation, David, is going to be, if I remember rightly, is going to be customer interaction analytics for better sales outcomes. So just before you kick off, let me change the slide deck over, which we have there, and then just handing you control, David. You should now have control. If you click once on the main screen, then you can use your arrow keys. So over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, John. Welcome everybody to my section for this afternoon. Appreciate you staying on the call and having a very useful session, I think, so far. Hopefully add some more insight to what's been said already, and in particular focusing on, as John said, the sales areas. And I think it's probably worth giving you just a little bit of background on Ember first of all. So you have the context of how we are involved in analytics day to day. We're a customer management and consulting and analytics business. Collectively, or individually, I should say, sort of, well, our management team of over 20 years experience in the customer service space, and a lot of that time has been spent, sort of, I guess, in the early days it wasn't called analytics, but dealing with the understanding and analysis of what happens in call centers, why, and how we help customers to improve those contact centers. Our focus as a business today is very much around helping board teams make decisions using robust analysis. So there's having that information at their fingertips to say the decisions we're now making about the future direction of our operations, future investments in outsourcing or in new sites and technology and people are the right ones because we've got the right data. So we help them to get that data. And I think what we specifically do is make sure that what you can do is drive action from the inside. So rather than just saying here's the data, we help people to understand what it's telling them and help them to build and then execute those plans that will deliver the outcome they're after. And so in terms of analytics and people using analytics tools, my role is as head of analytics for Ember. So we support our projects with clients, and we also support clients directly in terms of helping them to understand how to use their analytics tools better and get the optimization out of those tools. And specifically, as Joan's been talking about, and I'll talk about a little bit more, specifically we focus on speech analytics and the complexities of speech, probably a little bit more than some other areas of data analysis, and therefore we see it as a great opportunity to help people to improve how they get the benefits of speech, because there are many of them. Okay, so through these slides, I've only got about 8 to 10 slides. So what I'm going to focus on are some case studies, but just a little bit of scene setting first of all, just to put some context around the sort of the sales analytics piece in particular. And so I just put this slide together just to summarize at a very high level some of the key questions of key things which are the drivers of sales that we need to be considering in our contact centers. And when I thought about it, I could have put in maybe 20 different things here, but I wanted to simplify it down to the essential elements. First of all, it's a people question. How well are our people selling? And when you look at that, for me, there are some key metrics we should be looking at here. And one of those is the pitch rate. How often do people actually offer new products, try to upsell, take the opportunities that are presented to them. Then beyond that is the conversion rate. Once you've done that, how well do we actually make the conversion? And then compliance. Are we doing it in a way, as Simon was talking about, are we doing it in a way that is compliant with our regulators? And I suppose you could put in there the quality piece as well. Sort of if it's not regulated, then how well are we sticking to our prescribed quality guidelines, which define who we are and what our culture is and what we want our customers to see about us from a brand perspective. The other one then is obviously the products. Are our products attractive? So clearly you've got to have the right products. The key metric I'm looking at that is what's our margins per sale. So are we achieving those upsells? And in many industries, the core product does not make money. It's the upsell and the cross-sell that makes the money. And I'll talk about an example of that in a short while. So how do we make sure our products are attractive? And finally, are we easy to do business with? So this, I guess, spans across the whole of the interaction with customers. It's not just about the sales process. It's the service and after sales, technical support, and obviously going back up the chain into the browsing and the bit where you perhaps don't touch the customer as much when they're looking around for products and thinking about who they're going to purchase from, who's got the best price, who's got the best service. So the key thing here, and a lot of retailers will testify to this now, that for them the key metric is the contacts to order ratio. How many times do people have to speak to us on average for every order that we take? And that's back to what Joan was saying, one of these simple, meaningful metrics at a high level that boards are now starting to look at and say, sort of what's our CTO? How are we driving that down? And then from a ongoing perspective of the customer's view of it was good last time, I'll buy again, or it was so hard last time, and when I had the problem, they weren't very helpful. It's put me off. What's the repeat purchase rate? So for me, these are the sort of simple metrics you should be looking at, but they have added complexity because of the fact we are working in a complex multi-channel environment now, as already been talked about, and customers expect sort of an omni-channel world. Again, as Jen's talked about, I can transact with you across multiple channels. So I haven't got the answer that says that this is how you bring all these things together in one place. I don't think anybody has that answer at this point in time. But it's about sort of realizing that you've got to first of all got to start somewhere, but you've got to sort of think about metrics which will give you the overall context of what's happening in your contact center, and then use the analytics tools to drill down into those analytics, into those areas to understand the behaviours and actions and things you want to take actions you want to take to improve them. An example of a company that's done this very well over many years is Amazon. And I think a point was made earlier on by Simon that you don't just want to know how what's actually happening, but why. And if you look at how Amazon's got to where it's got to in terms of its dominance, it's focused on a metric like the contact to order ratio, but it's also focused on the why. What's driving its contact to order ratio. So it's a great example of a company that's achieved the analytics sort of nirvana that many of us still dream of. Okay, and then just thinking about the core inputs to the analytics from a sales perspective, I've just listed again a few here. It's not an exhaustive list or picture, but the point is to show that we are dealing with complex data sources in different formats. And it is hard to pull these together. And the challenge that businesses have is that it's not just one department that's trying to do this. Many departments in marketing, sales, and service are all pulling this data together, measuring it effectively in different ways, and then trying to compare the same sort of things. So when you measure customer satisfaction at the end of the call, or measure your NPS score at the end of a call in service. Marketing are doing that from an annual perspective or a quarterly perspective about the brand. How do you bring those two things together, and how do you make sense of that data? And so we've got a lot of owners, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of people who believe their data is right. And so the success of a sales analytics and sort of analytics in general is making sure that there is one version of the truth, and that you put that into one central team, have a team which is, I guess, independent of any other outside influences, but at the same time has strong connections back into all those teams that provide this data. And so with that mechanism, you will get much more success than the sales team or service team setting up their own teams and then trying to drive change across the business in a sort of a cavalier fashion, I suppose. So I think that's just worth putting some scene setting on that. I think the other key point here is the speech analytics piece. That's probably the new kid on the block in terms of the data that's being put into this process. And I wanted to just look at some of the things that we've been doing with speech analytics in the sales space. And I sat in a meeting yesterday with a client, and we were talking about scoping an analytics exercise and a speech analytics exercise, and we went through a whole host, and this isn't all of them, this is from some other projects as well, but a whole host of reasons for why you do speech analytics and what you wanted to find out. And the big question is that, the big point is that most people know what their staff are selling, but what they don't know is what do staff attempt to sell, how often do they try to pitch, and then when they do, and if they don't pitch, well, what was it the customer called about that meant they didn't pitch? Well, how was the customer feeling? What was the disposition? Why did they choose not to pitch? Was it something about sort of the customer was in a hurry, or just wasn't clearly interested in anything that the agent had to say and just wanted to get their problem solved? Maybe it was a complaint. And then, are there missed opportunities? Do the agents just miss things in their calls that could have been easy sell? And are some staff just not bothering? And then when you did pitch, why don't customers buy? Are agents not good at handling objections? Are some staff just trying too hard, and in the process of pitching too many things, the customers just switch off? And what's happening from a competitor's perspective? So it's not about sort of looking at the data from 6 months ago and understanding why a campaign didn't work, but here and now, what have the competitors done today, which is turning off my customers because Vodafone have just launched a better deal than O2, and therefore the deal we're selling clearly is not going to last, and customers are telling us that. That sales intelligence needs to be captured. And then when you look at the sales process and the compliance, which we've talked about a little bit already, a lot already, are my best sellers actually compliant? So do they get sales because they don't necessarily tell the truth, which I'm sure nobody would do that, but there may be situations where sort of some of those best sellers are being a bit economical with the explanations. And do I need to be able to show that all my sales are compliant? Because if I don't, the regulator will be coming back very quickly to see me. And then, did we make it easy? The process question: did we make it easy for customers to buy from us? How do we know? Sort of what's telling us that? And analytics and speech analytics is a great way of getting beyond the what into the why and answering these questions. So. Just a few case studies, to be honest, to show you now. I'm not going to bore you with much more text. This is a case study that we had done for an insurance client, or a piece of work we did for an insurance client, using speech analytics in their car sales, or their car insurance sales area. And again, as I mentioned, the margin on these sales comes from the upsell and the cross-sell, selling windscreen cover, selling key cover, personal accident cover, etc. And so we took a team, and each dot on this chart represents a member of that team, and we looked at their performance over a number of weeks in terms of the number of times they mentioned different products in calls. So this is the average number of mentions they made. And then looked at their average cross-sell margin for policy. So bringing together here the speech data with the performance data from the sales. So what that showed us is clearly that there was a fairly wide distribution of performance, and we categorize them in these 4 boxes. The targeted sellers, sitting in the top left corner, didn't mention many products in their calls, but actually had quite good cross-sell margins. So the implication there is that these guys know what to sell, they hear it, they go for it. So they are potentially the ones that we should be saying, yeah, they are our best agents that we need to understand how they perform that way, what is it they do, and we need to get them coaching other agents or bottle it and take it into training and make sure that we're training our other agents in this way that these guys are working. Least resistance sellers in the bottom left corner obviously don't mention much and don't sell much. Well, they need to be on performance plans. Clearly they have issues here. They're not trying, they're not spotting opportunities, and they're not selling much. Poor convincers, trying hard but not selling too much, and then persistent sellers, working very hard and getting results eventually. But we're wasting a lot of time on those calls, and look at the analysis. They have long talk times. They are selling probably too hard. And while I would say it's convincing, if you look at the dots on the graph, there is a peak in performance in terms of people selling the most in terms of margin around the 4 product mentions point. And the ones who are mentioning more products are not selling as much. So there is an element of in here of, are the customers switching off in the conversations and just saying, no, I've had enough. I'm not going to spend any more with you. So some really, we've obviously dug a lot deeper than this, but this just gives you a flavour of where you can go with some of that analysis around the people and performance. If you take it to the next level, we can look at the products as well. So this is the second box on that original chart of how well are my products performing. And a lot of information on here, so I'm going to keep it quite simple. In fact, I might just use the pen, John, to mark up these slides a little bit. So I'm going to pick this box here. I'm not sure if you can see that mark I've just put on there around the breakdown. So across the bottom here, we've got those products, and the 4 bars on that section, and each section represent those 4 groups that we've just talked about. The poor convincers, the targeted sellers, etc. And so what we can see here is that the dark bar, effectively in front of the chart, shows what people actually sold. So we're using again sort of the real data from the sales system. The lighter bars further back, the tall bars, are the mentions, the products that people made. So you can see that the persistent sellers in the top corners of the green ones have actually tried very hard to sell breakdown. And in fact, what they've all done is tried reasonably hard, but none of them actually achieved anything relative to each other. The actual conversion rate is very, very low. So the question here, which then becomes a discussion with the product teams and potentially the training team, is why are we not selling? What's happening? Is the product being packaged in the wrong way? Are we offering it to the wrong people? Is the training incorrect? Are we not equipping our staff? And so that opens up some great discussion points with other teams and departments. And again, having robust data is what allows you to have those discussions. And then if you look at this one here, which is personal accident, you can see very clearly that in that case, our 2 groups who did make lots of product mentions are spending a lot of time on the phone trying to sell this product, and not selling any more than any of the other groups. So the extra effort they're putting in and the extra average handle time that they're wasting is something that needs to be addressed. So we've got some clear opportunities here around improving the way that we train those products and the way that we actually build the offers in the first place. And I'll skip this slide, but that basically sort of shows the performance plan that each of the different groups were then sort of put onto, and sort of what activities were being targeted at those different areas to address the different characteristics of behaviour that we were seeing in those groups. And as a result of this, there have been changes that have been driven into their whole conversion rate, which say for another day because Johnny's hurrying me along. The final area, just briefly to look at, was the process piece. This is a retail case study, and these reason codes here show the call types that occurred in the sales team for this particular client. The point here is obviously you're always going to get sort of some spurious calls that come into the wrong teams. But when you look at the calls that are coming here, the two biggest ones are around. First one is sort of, I need to arrange a delivery. So you've called me and left a message, and I need to book a delivery slot, which is the biggest bar. And so clearly, there's a lot of manual work going on in this contact center to arrange sort of the delivery process for this company. Clearly needs some process redesign. The second one, second largest, is where's my stuff? I've not heard from you. So again, here it's process failure, it's quality of communication, and those sort of aspects that need to be tightened up. And there are others around stock levels and returns, which could be automated. So again, sort of what we have here is not just sort of true picture of contact reasons in this sales area, but the data and the examples to back it up, so we can pull out the calls that allow the customers to see, to allow the management team to see, what's actually happening and bring it to life, if you like. And so, that's really important to have that sort of information when you're having those discussions across departments and trying to drive that change. And the final slide, then, just on that contact to order ratio. Again, showing some data from this retail case study, what we're looking at here was, first of all, how many, when we have a call that's discussing the orders, which is the two charts on the left, how many times of those calls are they repeats? And we can see here that a large proportion, over 50%, are repeats, compared to calls which are not about orders. There was only 19%. And then the two bottom charts sort of show, what actually happens when we have these calls, and you can see that the red section illustrates the number of calls that are actually resolved. So when it's an order-related call, only 25% or 26% are actually resolved on that call, whereas non-order, 50% are resolved. So the whole point there is the analytics helps us to understand at a good level of detail, what was the outcome of these calls, and therefore, so where are we creating more effort for us and for customers in that whole sales process. So in summary, I just wanted to summarize these 5 points, which are sort of, I guess, is the model that we follow when we help clients to implement sort of effective analytics processes. First thing is, know what outcomes you're trying to achieve. What metrics are you trying to affect? Going back to that list at the start, is it CTO? Do you want a CTO that sort of is 0.1, which is what the best performers have, or are you happy with 0.5, which means 1 in 2 calls for every order versus the 1 in 10 calls? The best performers are down at 0.1. What's your goal? And then what's your hypothesis that you're trying to analyze? So there's so much data to dig into. Where do you want to focus to help answer these questions? What do you think are the issues? And it's really important to do that. Otherwise, you'll end up scattergunning your whole analysis and be really sort of overwhelmed with information. Make sure analysis is robust, which is where the speech helps to deliver that. And the speech also brings examples to life for stakeholders of what's happened. I've talked about this centralized and systematic approach to improvement. It's a central team with shared KPIs, and KPIs that then go out across the stakeholders to ensure that everybody is on the same page and pulling towards the same goal. And finally, measure, track, and communicate success. I think the key thing is demonstrating value. This centralized team is not just a reporting team; it's the one that everybody in the business needs to come to that says, help us to understand X or Y. So it's delivering that actionable, useful insight. If you want to learn more about who we are and what we do, there's some links on the right and some white papers on analytics you can get from there, and have to take questions at the next section.
Thanks very much, David. Great stuff. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to look at the slides of any of our presentations in more detail, you'll be getting a link through tomorrow with the recording of this particular webinar. So if you do have to step away now, or if we go over the top of the hour, which we may well do, then you can always catch up the last few minutes of this presentation on the recording. As I say, that will be sent through. If you're watching the live broadcast, that'll be sent through to your personal email addresses that you registered on tomorrow morning. So I'm just going to bring in each of our speakers and also introduce you to our guest panelist for this Q&A session. That's Lloyd Coles, who is contact center experienced analyst within the speech analytics team at Tesco stores. So just to check that you're still with us, Lloyd.
Yep.
Can you hear me okay?
Thanks, John. Hello, everyone.
Very good afternoon, and yes, thank you very much for joining us for this session. So I'm going to kick off with you, Lloyd. We had a bit of a conversation yesterday in preparation for this particular panel, and I'd just like to sort of just get an insight into your role within within the speech analytics team at Tesco, just to give an understanding of what you do, because this is an emerging profession within the UK, and sort of Tesco is one of the early adopters of the technologies. Absolutely. So therefore it would be it'd be good to give people an insight into someone who's a specialist in the area. So if you could give an idea of what sort of what you guys do in that team on a day-to-day basis, that'd be cool.
Yep, sure, excellent. So I suppose we kind of split by our key business areas to make sure the kind of workloads are managed appropriately. So myself take care of the customer service, so the store service contact, so where that business area takes in contact from customers regarding store issues, but also on a kind of a do-you stock level, so queries about what we've got in stores, store opening hours, facilities, and like I say, probably the more importantly, dealing with store service, staff issues, compliments, complaints of that nature. So I suppose one of my key roles is to gauge and monitor that contact on a number of levels. So looking at, first and foremost, what it is that our customers contact us about regards to store service, and seeing exactly if there is, I suppose, a frequency in a particular type of issue. So say, for example, if we are seeing an increase in having rude staff at tills, etc., so being able to highlight and identify the exact causes behind what causes our customers to contact us about store service, but also on the back of that, seeing how our agents perform in dealing with these queries, and exactly what our kind of ratio is, I guess, of customers who are satisfied with the contact, with the experience that they kind of get delivered by our agents. Seeing if we can improve the knowledge, so seeing if our agents are knowledgeable on the phone, and if they are displaying, confidence, or kind of tailoring background to being able to improve our CSAT target, and also trying to stop, as I think David was kind of heavily focusing on, is our repeat contacts. So making sure that our agents can kind of get a first-time resolution. Like I say, that's kind of carried across each business area. As you know, we've got kind of Tesco.com, which is your online grocery shopping, Tesco Direct. We've got Tesco Club Card. So like I say, it's very much us trying to get a holistic view, I guess, of the customer experience end to end, but also understanding what our agents do, what they do well, and where there's opportunities to improve as well.
That's really cool. And in terms of the sort of the key drivers of value for the business, is there a standout sort of area which you say, well, the analytics team have identified particular areas for either improvement or change within the business, which is sort of the real sort of value driver? Is there any one thing in particular, or is it spread evenly across a number of things that you've already mentioned?
Yeah, so I mean, I've got to go through kind of a few examples. So I'll touch on I suppose one from an internal improvement, so looking at our agents' performance, and then what we've got, I suppose, on the business or the feedback to the wider business benefits. So making it kind of our wider stakeholders, people who are outside of our contact centres, being aware of exactly what drives our customers to get hold of us via whatever channel it might be. So like I say, I'll start with the agent level. So we've developed kind of initiative and implemented it into a kind of a business as usual scheme at the moment. So it's an agent level performance summary. So I think Joan touched on it earlier, but measuring kind of the core skills and the behaviours against if our agents are also knowledgeable and are receiving that customer delight. So are our customers happy with the outcome at the end of those calls? So what it actually touches on is some kind of key behaviours that you'd like to see, and obviously anyone who's been had to contact a centre, be it for whatever reason, your phone bill, or it might be kind of your bank, the things that you expect to see, that's what that we try to measure to make sure that we get them in on as many calls as possible. So call structure, things like empathy and apology, using appropriate positive language, which in turn should give us a positive experience, which will be highlighted by the customer when they tell us that they are either thankful for the service at the end or telling us things like, you know, we really appreciate it, thanks for your help, etc. So I think it becomes a really powerful coaching tool, and at the moment we've got it in operation on 2 of our business areas, one of them being store service, which is what I said earlier is what I look to manage, and also on the Tesco Direct side of things. So it's a representative of where they are doing a great performance as well. But it also focuses on opportunities to improve. It's a really kind of powerful coaching tool if you were to label it as something, and it gives I suppose the idea is to improve the conversations that we, first of all, I suppose, have with our agents have with their team leaders or their managers, wherever it might be, to give them more defined coaching objectives rather than I suppose historically we've always focused on maybe too much of the numerical side of things. So where we need to spend 5 seconds less on the call, or we need to do less in not ready, for those of you who are aware of what that is, but focusing more on the quality. So being able to kind of home in on specific behaviours or specific areas where an agent isn't knowledgeable. So for example, we could measure, and we do measure, where an agent takes a certain number of call types. So if we stick with store service, one of them will be product query, and the other might be store staff service complaint. So we look to measure those call types on exactly the frequency of how much they come in for each agent, and against that, are they knowledgeable on those call types? Is the customer displaying that they're happy with the experience that they're delivered? And what we're finding actually is that agents, first and foremost, much prefer this type of conversation with their managers. It makes it more effective. It's more to talk about, something tangible. And we're actually seeing the groups of agents are now setting their own goals week on week and driving their own improvement. So when these get communicated to the team leaders week on week as their summaries, some team leaders are choosing to send them out to their agents. The agents are then kind of looking at it, assessing where they think specifically that they could improve. And what's good about it as well is that it's matched against their peers who actually take that same contact type. We don't measure across contact type because it's not reflective. So what we look to do is say, okay, of all the contact that this agent receives about grocery orders, so your home shopping, of the 3 sites that we've got, we measure that agent across everyone else who takes that business area, and then it becomes a representative of how they're doing in relation to everyone else who takes that contact type, rather than a business set target that is quite static and doesn't move depending on kind of what the business is focused on at the time, maybe what type of contact is coming in. So we're seeing really kind of big pushes and huge uptake of using that tool. Like I say, its ultimate goal is to achieve our 95% CSAT, and we're seeing that we've been tracking green for 10 weeks now on CSAT. So I think that's had a massive part to play in it as well.
Oh, good stuff. Lloyd, let me just bring in Simon, because I know that Simon has to step away at the top of the hour, and I'll come back to you in a few minutes.
Yep, excellent.
Lloyd, that's absolutely great insight, and it's really interesting to understand how a dedicated team is actually doing things in the real world. So I will come back to you. Simon, we had a question come through on the Q&A about consistency across channels and potentially the role of analytics in ensuring this consistency of experience across channels. could you just give us a bit of insight? I know you answered the question directly online, but if you just give us a bit of insight into how Camelot sort of addresses that.
Yeah, sure. So I think the question was from Emma Barnes-Lewis, and she really asked whether how to achieve that channel consolidation. So when I was talking earlier about the customer orchestration and channel coordination layers, it's like, how do you actually do that in reality? I guess, unfortunately, there is no one magic solution, otherwise somebody would be very rich. But for us, and I think for a number of other organisations, it tends to centre around your enterprise architecture, and in particular middleware capability. So we migrated away from having lots of different systems that deal with different aspects of provisioning for our different products, and rebuilt those in middleware. We're using WebLogic. Your mileage may vary. Other middleware solutions are available. But it boils down to having a common business service for some of the common things that you want to do with your customers. So a common query might be, for example, what customer segment is this person in? What is the next best product to offer this customer? Now, those queries may come from any channel. They may come from your web portal. They may come from mobile application. They may come from an application that's sitting on the agent desktop when they receive a call from that customer. But it's essentially the same question. And if you have a piece of middleware, what that allows you to do is to have one repository for all the questions and have a single uniform mechanism for answering those questions, because it's all served from a single data repository. And in our case, that's an OLTP database that sits across our CRM and contact management and marketing platforms. But it does depend on having that sort of common middleware that's visible to all of your different channel applications, and often that requires quite significant enterprise re-architecting. Like I said, there is no simple solution, but that's been our approach to it. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great, Simon. Thanks very much for that. And I know you've got to step away now, so thank you very much for your contribution today. That's really great. And if, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got any direct questions for Simon, you can put them in now while we're still live on air, or you can send them through if you took down Simon's email address, or you can send them through to myself, and I'll make sure that
my pleasure, John. Thank you all, and I know some of you have been getting in touch with me via LinkedIn. That's also a good way of getting in touch with me as well.
Great stuff. Thanks for your contribution, Simon. For those of you who have to leave us now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to carry on for a few more minutes, because I've got we've got some more questions that we'd like to address. And the next one, Joan, I think is best directed to you, which is speech analytics has this, sort of this ability to spot particular words and phrases, and it can set off alarm bells and provide virtually real-time indications of customer engagement and disengagement. So is there such things as common words and phrases, or what's your experience working with lots of different clients in this area?
Well, I have got to say, John, that spotability, which is a patented trademark of interaction intelligences, that spotability is where it's at, right? And that can use words or phrases. So we would work ideally with the contact centre team to identify the words and phrases that they would like to spot, right? So what crops up time and time again is, this is the 10th time I've called you, you people, you guys, that type of thing. But on the flip coin, on the other side of that, there's actually the ability to say, that was great, thanks very much, that was wonderful, thank you. And we can then feed that into our training programme. So it's not all about the negative words that are getting spotted, it's actually about the positive words being spotted. And that doesn't mean, it's like push sell and you're looking for an additional sale. It's actually looking for potentially maybe adding something to the existing service that you already give to that customer, looking for potentially that premium product that you currently don't sell to them, that you could work with marketing to actually develop and actually put into the portfolio. So Analyzer is good on both sides. It's an excellent customer service tool, but then again it can work very easily in the internal departmental, building up training plans, coaching, mentoring, that type of thing. So it's an all-round tool that can be used internally, externally, sales, customer service, the whole piece.
I think it comes down to the fact that potentially analytics, be it on the voice channel, i.e. speech analytics, or be it in text analytics across the sort of the non-vocal channels, web chat, email, etc. These can act as a barometer for the organisation. They can act as a health check on an ongoing basis, and so the more that one looks into it, the more the possibilities of using it come up. And actually, I'll just come back to you, Lloyd, because as an observer of the industry and of this particular product area as it's emerged over the years, I can see that the opportunity is probably not necessarily in just the technology. The technology sort of gives the potential to deliver value, but it actually, when it comes down to it, it's actually that team on the ground, that analytics team who sit there day in, day out, thinking of interesting things to look for and identifying, sort of the pluses and minuses that are coming out of those customer interactions. So, in terms of resourcing that team, what is the typical sort of, personality or character traits of an analytics analyst? What makes a good analyst, Lloyd?
I guess it's about being able to, so I guess a kind of a bit of baseline business knowledge is always key. So having someone who's maybe been in the business for, like I say, only myself has been about 5 years collectively. So being a bit aware of kind of the wider business and what generates kind of impact, be it positive or negative, and again, from a customer, an agent, and a business perspective. But I guess being able to, very much myself, not be afraid to explore exactly what we think generates benefit. So being able to look and approach kind of your wider stakeholders to say, okay, well, you've asked for this information, but actually speech can tell you something different. So like I say, we've got various business systems here. Some of them focus primarily on agent logs. Agent logs being only as good as the user, unfortunately, so maybe not representative of the whole picture. So what we can use speech to do is say, well, actually, this has been the story up until now. But if, again, a lot of the time I see a gap to say, well, there's obviously something missing between whoever delivers the information and where they get it, and actually to say, well, on the basis of a sample of calls based on this contact type, the key themes from it are that our customers are telling us X, Y, and Z, rather than we've got 50 logs from our agents that tell us the customers have contacted us, about whatever it might be, but really the meaning behind it. So again, I think probably the key, some of the key characteristics of being an analyst are to be able to inspire your own kind of progression as to what you would like to look for, because again, speech is there as a tool, and as an end user, you've got to be able to look at it and maybe recognise a bit of potential, and start to think when you're listening to people delivering information to you, where you think speech could benefit it, and where you might have noticed, like I say, through maybe other businesses, like these type of webinars where you can say, well, another business has used speech analytics in this way, and then again being able to try and implement something that will generate change. But I think the biggest thing for me is being able to be a bit creative with it and try to think a little bit outside the box, I guess.
Lloyd, that's great. It's brilliant to have a real life insight into a speech analytics team member and understands the process you go through. So thank you very much for spending the time to come on the webinar today, and your insight is very much appreciated. I've got a final question. Well, I've got two final questions. One for David Naylor, and then I've got one last question for you, James. So, David, one of the things which I see particularly is of interest in the whole analytics area is the actual outcome of the analysis provides evidence which can be presented to the wider organisation to to drive change or influence change, or maybe give strength to perhaps some hunches where sort of perhaps what's the best way to phrase it? Perhaps somebody internally had an idea that, let's say, the billing department had some broken processes, which was driving a spike in contact center volumes, et cetera, and obviously having an impact on the customer experience and the customer journey. But without the actual hard evidence to say, yes, the analytics shows that is the reason. That's the reason all these people are calling. It's very difficult for people internally to, sort of get things changed. Do you see that analytics sort of provides that sort of evidence, and so therefore it can be a facilitator of change internally?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a phrase I've used for a long time called fact-free decision making, although I can't sing it. In which, basically, the sort of, how many times have I heard people say, if we had that information, we're in our board meeting, it would have been so much better from an outcome perspective. So a lot of businesses are still churning out sort of the standard reports rather than sort of going and getting their analytics team to really sort of engage with the problems, and to be honest, whether it's speech analytics or whether it's other tools, it's about what's the outcome rather than the means to get there, and ensuring that you don't spend time when you're engaging with stakeholders discussing the quality of the analysis and the data. You discuss the results and what it's telling you and what you're going to do about it. So that's the sign of a good analytics team, is that you move people into a place of trust around the data and say, we can move on now because we know that the tools and technologies are delivering us the information. But then it's still about, and I just come back to the point about the analytics team, that to your question on who, what makes a good analyst. I think one of the key skills of the analyst today is sort of as advocates for change and being able to support and drive change, so that you're working as a cohesive business. So not saying that those guys have to be the project managers of change, but they're the ones that have to be on top of tracking the metrics and making sure that everyone's being communicated to in terms of how well projects are going, how well improvements are happening, and so the process for them doesn't stop once they get people to commit to action. That's just the start of that process. And the biggest thing for everyone is, once you've got that data, you've got those metrics, is then putting those metrics into performance plans and sort of bonus structures or whatever it is, so that whether it's one key metric or two key metrics, you've got something which everybody's driving towards. In Amazon's case, come back to this one, contacts per order was a metric in all the board's performance bonuses. So how they got there was work together to make the most effective improvements that would bring down contacts per order.
Great stuff, David.
Yeah.
Brilliant insight, David. Thanks very much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've got any more specific questions for David, obviously, as we said earlier, you can either send them through right now. We've got a couple more minutes left, or you can send them through to me, and I'll make sure that they come through. David, we have to leave it there because we're pressed for time. But thank you very much for your contribution today. That's been really insightful. One final question for you, Joan, is today this is something which is, as a topic area, is gaining traction within the contact center market. There's lots of interest in it. Some of the biggest players are taking advantage of the opportunities that analytics provide them in terms of understanding their customer, understanding the market, and making changes to improve experience across each of the touch points across the customer journey. Do you think in perhaps, let's say, a 5-year horizon that analytics will be sort of a common feature of most organizations' contact center solution?
I absolutely think so, John, given the research, that I put up in one of my earlier slides, was the fact that, in 2004 we were nowhere. contact centres. It was deemed too sophisticated for contact centres, right? But we've changed completely the perception of contact centres. It's now the fastest growing application in contact centre history, and I just think it's going to get better and better, and the lines between CRM, middleware and the actual contact centre are going to join together over the next few years.
Joan, that's a great way to end a really insightful presentation, a set of presentations and panel discussion. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, if you've stayed with us on the online live for the extra 10 minutes we've taken. We much appreciate that. We'll be sending you through the recording link tomorrow morning. For those of you who are watching the re-recording, thank you very much for spending the time with us again. And it remains for me to thank our speakers, to Joan Hill, Simon Hill, David Naylor, our special guest panelist, Lloyd Coles, and of course a big thank you to Interactive Intelligence for sponsoring our webinar today. They're one of our ongoing supporters here at the Directors Club, and we much appreciate their support and look forward to working with you again in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to keep in touch with the Directors Club and its activities, you can do so via Twitter. If you wish to discuss anything with regard to this, we ask you to use the hashtag Directors Club, and you can always check out our Directors Club website at dcgbni.co.uk for more information on future events and also other activities that the Directors Club are doing. But finally, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for spending the time to join us on this Champions and Innovators webcast. My name is John Snow, and I hope you will be able to join me again. I hope to have your company again in the very near future for another Directors Club webinar event. Have a very good rest of the afternoon.